Hello guys, you are seeing Prime News Australia, where we show you the latest and important news of Australia in the fastest and reliable way. So come, let's start by not delaying. 25 big updates of the Australia, especially for you. Before proceeding in the video, comment by commenting from which state you are watching, and also like video, so that YouTube can reach this video to more people of Australia. The federal government of Australia has intensified efforts to tackle cost of living pressures by expanding energy rebates and reviewing supermarket pricing. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said inflation is easing, but households are still struggling with rent, fuel, and food costs. Opposition parties argue the measures are insufficient and demand broader tax relief. Economists warn global instability could slow recovery despite domestic policy steps. Housing affordability continues to worsen in cities like Sydney and Melbourne, with rents reaching record highs. Vacancy rates remain extremely low, forcing families and students to relocate to outer suburbs. State governments are accelerating social housing projects, but construction delays and labor shortages remain major obstacles. Housing advocates urge urgent reforms, warning homelessness risks are rising nationwide. Australia is experiencing extended heat waves across multiple states, increasing pressure on hospitals and emergency services. Health authorities warn vulnerable populations, including elderly people and outdoor workers, face serious risks. Bushfire agencies remain on high alert as dry conditions persist. Climate scientists say such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent, urging stronger national climate adaptation and disaster preparedness strategies. Public schools across Australia are struggling with severe teacher shortages, particularly in regional areas. Education departments are offering incentives such as relocation allowances and fast-tracked visas for overseas teachers. Unions say workload stress and stagnant wages are driving educators away. The federal government has announced consultations with states to create a long-term national workforce plan. Student groups are renewing calls for reform of university fee structures and the HECS-HELP loan system. Rising indexation has increased graduate debt, sparking protests on campuses nationwide. Government officials say changes must balance fairness with budget sustainability. Universities warn that reduced funding could affect research quality and international competitiveness. Discussions around Indigenous recognition and advisory mechanisms continue following past referendum debates. Indigenous leaders are urging bipartisan cooperation to close gaps in health, education, and employment. Community forums are being held nationwide to rebuild trust and promote dialogue. Analysts say long-term reconciliation requires consistent policy commitment rather than symbolic gestures. Large-scale solar and wind projects are expanding rapidly as Australia moves toward cleaner energy. Several regional communities are benefiting from new jobs and infrastructure investment. However, concerns remain about grid stability and storage capacity. Energy experts emphasize the importance of battery technology and transmission upgrades to meet future demand. Australia's major banks have reported strong quarterly profits, driven by higher interest margins. Consumer groups criticize banks for not passing on full benefits to customers. Regulators are closely monitoring lending practices amid rising household debt. Financial analysts predict cautious optimism as interest rates are expected to stabilize later this year. The federal government has launched a comprehensive review of Australia's migration system. The focus is on skilled labor shortages, housing pressure, and international student numbers. Business groups support higher-skilled migration intakes, while community groups urge better planning for infrastructure and services. Policy changes are expected later this year. Australia has reaffirmed its commitment to regional security through increased defense spending. Officials say the move reflects growing strategic competition in the Indo-Pacific. Defense analysts stress the importance of balancing military investment with diplomacy. Opposition parties are demanding greater transparency around long-term defense contracts. Hospitals across Australia are facing heavy demand due to flu outbreaks and heat-related illnesses. Emergency departments report longer wait times, particularly in metropolitan areas. Health unions warn staffing shortages are affecting patient care. Governments are urging vaccination and preventative measures to reduce pressure on frontline services. New funding has been announced to expand mental health services, especially in rural and remote communities. Telehealth programs are being strengthened to improve access. Advocacy groups welcome the move but say demand still far exceeds supply. Experts stress early intervention is key to reducing long-term healthcare costs. Australian retailers are reporting cautious consumer spending as households tighten budgets. Discounting and promotional sales are increasing, particularly in non-essential goods. Analysts say confidence may improve if inflation continues to fall. Small businesses are calling for targeted support to manage rising operational costs. governments. Major infrastructure projects, including rail and road upgrades, are facing delays due to cost blowouts and labor shortages. State governments insist long-term benefits remain strong despite short-term disruptions. Commuters express frustration over congestion and service interruptions. Infrastructure experts recommend improved project planning and risk management. Farmers across Australia are dealing with drought in some regions and flooding in others. Crop yields are uneven, affecting food supply chains. Agricultural groups are calling for stronger climate resilience funding. Government assistance packages have been announced, but farmers say long-term solutions are needed. Australia's tourism sector continues its gradual recovery, with international arrivals increasing. Popular destinations report higher bookings, but staffing shortages remain a challenge. Industry leaders say visa processing delays are affecting growth. Tourism bodies are promoting regional travel to spread economic benefit. Australian technology startups are attracting renewed investor interest, particularly in clean tech and artificial intelligence. Government grants and innovation hubs are supporting early-stage companies. However, founders warn access to long-term funding remains difficult. Analysts say global confidence will heavily influence future growth. Several states are reviewing policing strategies amid public concern about crime rates. Authorities say overall crime remains stable, but high-profile incidents have heightened anxiety. Community programs focusing on youth engagement are being expanded. Experts emphasize prevention and social support as key to long-term safety. Reforms to the aged care sector are being rolled out, focusing on staffing standards and care quality. Families welcome stricter oversight, but worry about rising costs. Providers say compliance requirements are increasing operational pressure. Regulators insist reforms are essential to protect vulnerable Australians. Government funding for grassroots sports is under review to improve participation rates. Sporting bodies argue community programs are vital for youth development and public health. Critics say elite sports receive disproportionate funding. Officials promise a more balanced and inclusive approach. Australia's national cricket team is preparing for an important international series amid mixed recent performances. Selectors face tough decisions, balancing experience and young talent. Fans remain optimistic about a strong comeback. Analysts highlight consistency as the key challenge for the team. With the AFL season approaching, clubs are finalizing squads and preseason strategies. Supporters are optimistic about new recruits and coaching changes. League officials emphasize fan engagement and player welfare. Ticket sales suggest strong public interest despite economic pressure. Australian universities are strengthening partnerships with overseas institutions to boost research and student exchange. Education leaders say global collaboration enhances innovation. Critics warn over-reliance on international markets could create financial risk. Policymakers are monitoring balance and sustainability. New conservation programs aim to protect endangered species and restore habitats. Environmental groups welcome increased funding, but stress enforcement is crucial. Scientists say biodiversity loss remains a major threat. Community involvement is being encouraged through local conservation initiatives. Surveys indicate public trust in political institutions remains fragile. Voters are demanding greater transparency and accountability from leaders. Political analysts say clear communication and ethical governance are essential to rebuild confidence. Both major parties acknowledge trust as a critical issue ahead of future elections.